Have you ever wondered how a baby, found in a basket among the reeds, became one of the greatest leaders in history? Picture this: a newborn child born into a world of turmoil and oppression, his life hanging by a thread, yet destined for greatness. This is the story of Moses, a story that begins not in grandeur but in humble reeds by the river Nile. In the time of Moses' birth, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, their lives filled with hardship and sorrow. The Pharaoh, fearing a prophecy that foretold of a Hebrew boy who would lead the Israelites to freedom, ordered a gruesome decree. Every newborn Hebrew male was to be thrown into the Nile, a desperate attempt to thwart the prophecy. Yet in the midst of this horror, a Hebrew woman gave birth to a son. Fearing for his life, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she made a basket of reeds, coated it with tar and pitch, and placed the child inside. She then set the basket amongst the reeds, along the bank of the Nile, entrusting her son's fate to the river. As destiny would have it, the Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the Nile. She found the basket, heard the baby's cries, and her heart was moved. She recognized him as one of the Hebrew children, yet she chose compassion over decree. She adopted the baby, named him Moses, meaning drawn out, because she drew him out of the water and raised him as her own in the royal court of Egypt. Though born a Hebrew, Moses grew up as an Egyptian prince, indulging in royal luxuries, receiving the finest education, and enjoying privileges that his birth people could only dream of. Yet, underneath the facade of Egyptian royalty, his true heritage lay dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And so Moses, a Hebrew by birth and an Egyptian by upbringing, grew up oblivious to his true destiny. Imagine one day a simple bush on fire would change your life and destiny forever. This was the experience of Moses, a man destined to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. As he was tending his flock near Mount Horeb, he stumbled upon a peculiar sight, a bush of flame yet not consumed. This was no ordinary fire, it was a divine manifestation of God. God, in the form of this burning bush, spoke to Moses. His voice boomed, echoing around the mountainside, commanding Moses to undertake a monumental task. He was to lead the Israelites, his brethren, out of the clutches of the cruel Pharaoh and into a land of milk and honey. It was a task that would require courage, faith, and resilience. From that moment on, Moses knew his purpose and the path he had to walk. He was no longer a simple shepherd. He was a chosen leader, a deliverer, a prophet. What if the only way to freedom was through a series of devastating plagues? Picture this: Moses, a humble shepherd chosen by divine providence, confronting the mighty Pharaoh, ruler of Egypt. His demand? Simple, yet audacious. "Let my people go," he said, but the Pharaoh, sitting on his throne of gold and lapis lazuli, laughed at the request. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he refused to free the Israelites, the very people whose sweat and blood built the grandeur of Egypt. But the refusal came with a price that the land of the Nile had to pay in the form of 10 dreadful plagues, each one a signal from the heavens, a testament to the power of the God of the Israelites. The first plague turned the life-giving waters of the Nile into blood. Fish died, the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink its water. The second plague brought a swarm of frogs that covered the entire land. The third and fourth plagues saw the land infested with lice and wild animals. The fifth plague struck the livestock of the Egyptians, causing them to fall ill and die, while the sixth brought painful boils upon man and beast alike. The seventh and eighth plagues brought destruction in the form of hail and locusts, damaging crops and vegetation. The ninth plunged Egypt into a darkness so profound it could be felt. But it was the 10th plague that was the most devastating of all: the death of the firstborn. Every household in Egypt experienced the pain of loss, from the lowest servant to the Pharaoh himself. With each plague, Pharaoh's heart hardened, but the final plague would break even the mightiest of wills. The cries that night were not just of sorrow, but of a powerful ruler finally understanding the consequences of his arrogance. The 10 plagues, each a symbol of defiance and a demand for freedom, finally led to the release of the Israelites, marking the beginning of their journey towards the promised land. What if the path to freedom was not on land but through the sea? Picture this for a moment. The Israelites, more than 400 years in Egyptian captivity, are finally on the brink of liberation. Their leader Moses, a man of humble beginnings, has risen to the occasion, standing up to the mighty Pharaoh and orchestrating 10 devastating plagues. Now they face the final test, the Exodus. This is not just a journey, it's a symbol of hope, faith, and the power of divine intervention. The Exodus begins in a rush. Picture thousands of families hastily packing their belongings, the air thick with anxious anticipation and hope. They leave Egypt, their place of bondage, and with each step the promise of a better future grows stronger. Their destination, a land flowing with milk and honey, promised to them by God Himself. But between them and their promised land stands the Red Sea, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. As they reach the shore, they hear the thundering sound of Egyptian chariots in hot pursuit. Fear grips them, but Moses, their steadfast leader, raises his staff. And then the inconceivable happens. The Red Sea parts, creating a path through the waves and revealing the sandy seafloor. It's a spectacle that defies human comprehension, a testament to divine power and intervention. So they step onto the seabed, the towering walls of water on either side held back as if by invisible hands. It's a tense, awe-inspiring journey, a literal walk between life and death. As the last of the Israelites step onto the other shore, the sea walls collapse, swallowing the pursuing Egyptian army. Their journey doesn't end there, though. Ahead lies a trek through the desert, a test of faith and endurance. But for now, they've tasted the sweet nectar of freedom, an experience etched deeply into their hearts and into the annals of history. And so the Israelites, led by Moses, walked through the depths of the sea and into freedom. Imagine being given the laws that would guide an entire civilization directly from the divine. Here, on the towering peak of Mount Sinai, amidst thunder, lightning, and a thick cloud of smoke, Moses received the 10 Commandments. These weren't just any laws, they were divine principles, a moral compass to guide the Israelites and lay the foundation for many legal systems around the world. The first 4 commandments focused on the relationship between God and man. "You shall have no other gods before me," God declared, emphasizing His uniqueness and supremacy. The second forbade the creation of idols, while the third prohibited the misuse of God's name. The 4th commandment, to keep the Sabbath holy, established a day of rest and worship. The remaining 6 commandments addressed human relationships, beginning with honoring one's parents. The next 5 commandments forbade murder, adultery, theft, false testimony, and coveting, thus maintaining peace and order within society. These commandments weren't just laws, they were a social contract, a unique agreement between God and His chosen people. The Israelites were to follow these commandments, and in return, God promised to protect and bless them. This relationship was not based on fear, but on mutual respect and love. The 10 Commandments also served as a universal moral guide, transcending cultural and temporal boundaries. They advocated for justice, truth, and respect for human dignity. They taught us the value of honesty, the importance of family, and the sanctity of life. In the grand narrative of the Exodus, the 10 Commandments are a pivotal moment. They represent a shift from physical freedom to spiritual guidance. They provided the newly freed slaves with a moral compass, a way to live in harmony with one another and with God. With the 10 Commandments, Moses not only led his people to physical freedom, but also gave them spiritual guidance. These laws, etched in stone, have echoed through the centuries, shaping societies and inspiring individuals. They remind us that freedom is not just about breaking chains, but also about living responsibly and ethically. What does it mean to be a true leader? As we reflect on the life of Moses, we see a man who was more than just a leader. He was a beacon of faith, an embodiment of perseverance, a symbol of hope. His story isn't merely one of liberation and law-giving. It is a testament to the power of unwavering faith in the face of insurmountable odds. Moses' journey, his trials and triumphs have echoed through generations, shaping the course of history. His steadfast commitment to his people, his courage in confronting Pharaoh, and his humility in accepting God's will have left an indelible mark on the fabric of our shared narrative. His life epitomizes leadership, not through domination, but through service, not through power, but through faith. His legacy isn't just in the laws he delivered or the people he led to freedom, it's in the timeless lessons his life offers us. And so Moses, a man of humble beginnings, became a beacon of hope and faith, his story echoing through the ages.